So if you've clicked on this video, you probably saw the thumbnail and were thinking, man, gotta know what this guy's opinion is behind this because I probably already hate it. So some of you may have already jumped over to the dislike button, maybe you're running down to the comments to be upset, but hold on a minute. Just give me a couple minutes. Let me explain a little bit further because it's not as simple as it may look. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Chrono. I do content here on YouTube daily, usually covering a completely different game, one I've played for a very long time called Phantasy Star Online 2. However, today we're going to be talking about a game I've played even longer, Final Fantasy XIV. Today's topic of the video is going to be a bit of a hot button topic that's come up a lot recently since there are a lot of new players to Final Fantasy XIV. Today we're going to be talking about jump potions or story skips. Now, if you're unaware of what these are, essentially, at least in Final Fantasy XIV, you are able to go on to a cash shop, what they call, I believe it's the Final Fantasy XIV shop now, it was originally called the Mog Station. Anyway, you were able to purchase an item for a character that allowed you to skip a certain portion of either leveling or the story itself. And jump potions or story skips come in a wide varieties, allowing you to skip to certain portions. So you got jump pots allowing you to skip up to like the 50s, 60s, 70s, or skipping over the storyline of A Realm Reborn up to Heavensward, or skipping Heavensward up to Stormblood, or Stormblood up to Shadowbringers. With the new one usually coming out shortly after every expansion, getting you up to the start of that expansion itself. It's kind of used as a bit of a marketing ploy to get people excited about the new expansion and let them know, hey, look, if you really don't want to play through everything else to get up to that new expansion, you can just jump on ahead. Now, whether we morally agree with it or not in a subscription-based game, it's something that has become very common in the MMO space to allow game companies to not only push the new expansion that's coming out, but let people know that, hey, you can jump directly into it if you really want to. Whether or not it's something that should exist, I'll leave up to your discretion. Now, I'm going to give you a quick history of myself with Final Fantasy XIV, just to kind of give an idea of why I feel like I should talk about this, because man, some of the things I've heard about when it comes to jump potions, players saying certain things have been absolutely wild. So I originally started playing Final Fantasy XIV way back in 1.0. I think, was it 2011? I remember not exactly the month, but I know it was 2011. So I started playing the original Final Fantasy XIV. I actually had a lot of fun with it. I was an 11 player, so I was super excited to see a new game show up, and man, was it terrible. Fast forward a bit, of course the game shuts down, pops back open again. Didn't get to keep my old account, but you know, it's a story for another video. However, we jump into A Realm Reborn, and we've been playing the game basically almost consistently ever since. Jumped into raid content back in 2.x. I want to say actually this was still during first coil time. I remember my first real fight being T4 that I really jumped into. It was a lot of fun. God knows I had no idea what I was doing when it came to raid content, but had a good time and have always raided ever since. It's been one of the most important parts of playing Final Fantasy for me moving forward. Now, a big draw for 14 is its story. Its story is told over multiple expansions and is actually coming to a pretty climactic ending, apparently with Shadowbringers, or excuse me, with Endwalker. So not only are a lot of us super excited for that, I mean, Square Enix is also pushing that, hey, this is a crazy time to jump into the game. Plus, of course, other people are, hyping the game up itself. Tons of other people are coming over from other games that aren't doing too hot. We're not going to talk too much about that, but we all know what I'm referring to. And that all brings us around to jump potions, story skips. Should you use them? Should you not use them? What do they really do? Like, what are the actual impacts of these things? Now, before we even jump into that specifically, I will mention that Final Fantasy XIV is a subscription-based game. Realistically, you should get everything you need from within the game itself. This is from a moral perspective. However, Cash Shop does exist. You are able to purchase things off of that. Now, whether or not I agree with that personally, for record, I don't. I think everything should be in the game itself. I do also understand there are players that want to put that extra money into the game to support the game itself and don't have the time to be able to put into it like I might be able to. Now, all that being said, should you jump potion? Honestly, if you really want to, sure. It's not really that big of a deal. Now, if you're someone who wants to enjoy the storyline, someone who takes some time to learn about things and really get the true Final Fantasy XIV experience to really find out why everyone's hyping it up, you shouldn't jump potion. You should just play through everything. Take your time, enjoy it. It's actually part of why a lot of people play the game itself, is literally the leveling experience and playing through the story. While you absolutely can jump potion to endgame and then double back and enjoy the story, watching it through cutscenes in your inn, or playing the new Game Plus feature they added into the game that allows you to play everything at a higher level, you just won't experience the story the same way as you would playing through it for the first time, all the way through from start to finish. The dungeons that you go through, some of the raids that you actually do, all of these are storylines. In A Realm Reborn, the storyline of A Realm Reborn was not just in all of the story content you played. Some of it was in the raid content. you really didn't know what happened to Louis Suave if you didn't do the Realm Reborn raids. And this is something that existed before we had the introduction of normal mode raids. So unless you were getting together a static of players, or you waited until, you were vastly over leveled and they implemented the undersized system, you really didn't get a chance to see that story. I mean, granted, I guess you could watch it on YouTube, but again, not really the same way of experiencing it. Now, this has all changed over time. Story is told better, so on and so forth. But these were things that realistically as players we dealt with. And it's why a lot of people are really passionate about letting everyone enjoy the storyline. Now, I want to go on to what I don't agree with and what I hear happen consistently. You hear comments like, if you skip ahead, you won't know how to play your job. You won't know how to play the game. You won't know how to play your class. You won't know what you're doing, so on and so forth. All right, let me get something clear. Playing through the story does not teach you how to play the game. It gives you the opportunity to learn how to play the game over time, but you still need to make an effort. You don't magically learn how to play your class. You don't magically learn how to play the game by just playing through the story. So that entire viewpoint of if you skip, you're never going to learn how to play the game, you won't know what you're doing, while understandable, is absolutely crap. It's actually this insane form of gatekeeping I've seen recently where I've had to step in and talk with a few of my friends because some of them have been like, well, I'll go back and experience the story, but realistically, I want to get into this sort of content with everyone else. Yeah, if you jump potion, you're going to have to learn your class. But guess what? There are tons of resources online, tons of content creators, tons of written guides, tons of guides of all different types that will teach you how to play the game, that will help you understand your role, mechanics in the game, so on and so forth. That if you take the time to go into those and learn them instead of playing through the game itself, you'll be perfectly fine. In some cases, even better than players that did just play through the game itself. Actually, scratch that. Most of the time, if you take the time to go through those guides, you absolutely will be better than players that haven't. However, everyone wants to learn differently. Everyone wants to experience the game differently. And I understand that, hey, look, if you pay for a game, why would you pay to skip large portions of it? Realistically, having options is always the better choice, in my opinion, for the player. So how you decide to go ahead and tackle the world of Eorzea is completely up to you. However, I am under no delusion and will never push the mindset that playing through the story teaches you how to play the game. Again, it provides you the opportunity to learn how to play the game itself through dungeons, through drip feeding you your actual gear, through drip feeding you all your skills, and you start to understand how the game itself works over time. However, some people also just are cool with getting tons of information all at once, sit down, read through it a little bit, and all of a sudden they know exactly what they're doing. If you're one of those people and you want to experience the game that way, by all means go for it. However, there's no excuse to say that if you jump potion, you should know how to play the game itself. Learn how to play the game. It's crazy. I actually had a friend of mine who felt so pressured to play the story that he did buy an actual story, not a story skip, but he bought a job skip to skip ahead to at least unlock the job that he wanted to play, which was Gunbreaker, and then only bought a story skip for Realm Reborn because he'd already watched the story for Realm Reborn, and then played through all of Heavensward, not really gaining any experience because he really didn't need to. He was a level 60 already, just to make sure that he experienced the story going forward. And that wasn't even a decision he made on his own. It was because a bunch of the people that he played with, or his friends were like, yo, you have to play the story. It's insane how pressuring that can be sometimes, and how little you're able to criticize anything if you story skipped. Now, that being said, you can't have a true appreciation of the entire story if you do story skip. So again, I would recommend play through the game, play through the story. Leveling is not that bad anymore. Going through the story, also not that difficult anymore. They trimmed down a ton of quests. They cut down a lot of bloat to make the experience substantially better. However, if you were going to skip all of the story content anyway, if you're just going to complain about the leveling process and you were just going to watch a guide when you got to the end game and you have the disposable income and you really don't care, then by all means, go for it. It means it's not going to change any part of your experience overall. But if you're a player that wants to learn about the story itself, you want to find out what all the hype is about, you're someone who likes to learn about content over time. I know there's a lot of players, or a lot of actual streamers right now, some of the bigger streamers that are jumping into 14 who are going through and playing all of the content. They're playing the raid content like min item level, and that's really, really cool to see. Now, if you're someone who wants to experience that, that's fantastic. But if you story skip and you're like, man, I don't see what all the hype was, well, the Clown University is down the road. Here's your nose, have a good time. Congratulations, you basically played yourself. Honestly, 14 does a great job of teaching you a lot of stuff over time, dungeon tells, boss mechanics, what to look out for, how, even to the pacing of the game itself. You do learn through a lot of things just playing through the game, but you also learn a lot of these things from reading about it. So however you need to absorb that information, by all means go for it. Just pick the right medium for yourself. Understand all of the pros and the cons to the choices that you're making overall. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. This video went on a little longer than I really wanted it to, and it was a bit more freeform than my usual videos. It's kind of difficult to really, hone in on this topic specifically, just because it is gotten so crazy out of hand sometimes. And I really wanted to talk about it and, let people know what they're really getting themselves into. A lot of people feel kind of gatekeeped out by having to play the game a very specific way, and realistically, you have choices. You can make your own decisions, and you should decide how you want to experience the game. However, making complaints about how you chose to experience the game is what really tends to upset players, and I wanted to make sure to separate those two things. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'm not going to do my usual spiel because this is a very different type of video, but links to find me are in the video description. Like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to keep up with content moving forward. I'm probably going to do some more 14 content moving forward itself, just because I played the game for so insanely long in the first place. I feel like it might be fun to jump into it, especially since PSO2 has been a bit stale recently. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Peace out.